Well, hello and welcome to episode number 312 of the Plane Talking UK podcast. I'm Carlos, and in this week's episode, everyone's favourite low-cost airline goes on some ghost flights. Ooh, very spooky. And we learn about the various ways the aviation industry is helping to tackle the outbreak. There's good news for frequent flyers as the tiered thresholds are reduced, helping to retain their status as good for Nev. And one regional carrier flies its first plane into Heathrow. In the military this week, we learn that the Broncos are returning to the US service for training, and the Israel and US Air Force hold joint F-35s in drill. So joining me this week across the village from where I am here in the UK is, of course, Matt Smith.
Well, hello, everyone. Hello. How are you, Carlos? How are you?
Oh, this is getting boring now. This not being in the whole studio thing is kind of just, it's lost its appeal now.
I know. It's getting really dirty in here. I need you to come and tidy. That's.
Oh. Really?
No.
How very dare you?
No, it's fine. Honestly, I'm lying. It's fine. It's all very clean and tidy. Don't panic.
Good. I'm glad. So how's things? Obviously, we've both been the big F word, as in furloughed.
Yes, absolutely.
So I'm guessing that either you've got an incredibly clean car,
yes, I have,
incredibly garden, or yeah. Can't think of anything else.
I'm doing a lot of cooking, actually, because Mum obviously has been, as you know, she's got a few issues with regard to sort of hips and things like that. So I think she's rather enjoying the fact that I've sort of taken charge, if you like, busy cooking tea. I think that's going down a storm, I think, to be honest with you. And as I say, I'll bore everyone, if I may, very quickly. As I say, this was tea. This was tea that I cooked tonight. So there you go. Look, that was tea. Nice little healthy salad and some wedges and a bit of steak. Yeah. No? Okay. Right.
No, it's far too red.
Is it? Right, okay.
That needs to be cremated much more.
That I believe is how you ruin steak, from what I understand.
No.
Okay. Yes.
So we've got Nev with us, but he's just busy doing some tech help for our guest at the moment.
Indeed, absolutely.
But he will be back very soon. Armando, unfortunately, has got a busy flying schedule,
yes.
which, I mean, is really good news, I think, personally.
Yeah, that's incredible at the moment.
In the current climate that we're in. But obviously, Armando can't join us, but he sends his regards to everyone. So in the chat room this evening, we've got all the usual family members joining us this week, including Paul Trickers in the chat room, Chris Griggs, Stephen H. We've also got Auntie Liz in the chat room, Richard Adams, Tanya W. If I've been missing one, Tony S. Hello to you, Tony S. Myla is also in the chat room as well. I think Myla's been flying actually a few times.
Yes, well, I suppose that's the advantage of being cargo, isn't it? It's that we desperately need our goods to arrive, don't we? So I guess that's still you can still practice reasonable social distancing, I suppose, can't you? With
Laura Davis, Gustav Julinson. Hello to you as well. I'm just scrolling down to make sure I don't. Oh, Jenny has joined us in Rome. Jenny, I hope you are well and keeping healthy in Rome. So big hello to everyone who's joined us this evening. 3rd of April. We're in April. It's officially
How did that
April.
happen?
And time just coming up to 6:05 on this Friday evening.
7:05.
7:05. Sorry.
Yeah. We started an hour early. To be fair, Carlos, none of us really know what day it is. As I think, as Nev sort of said last week, it's just like, I don't know. It's like Christmas, isn't it? Only less fun.
Paul Trick has commented that he loves the moving video background. Yeah, that was actually taken from the window when we departed Oman.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good. Very good.
Bob Croneman says today is March the 48th.
March the 48th. I don't know what that means.
To be fair, Matt, but we were talking about this earlier, weren't we? Today could be any day.
It could be any day of the week, let's be honest, yeah.
Today's Munsat, Tues, Wednesday, whatever you want to call it, really.
Yeah, it's basically whatever day you want it to make it really there, isn't it? It's just like, that is the day. Yeah.
So, joining us as well this week, he's got back from his tech help phone call, which is always good. So joining us from his stately mansion in Buckinghamshire is, of course, the tech genius himself, Neville Bounds.
Yes, good evening. Well, we've had some technical challenges here, I can tell you.
Right up to the last wire as well.
Dismantled the studio and put it all back together, and 97% of it worked okay.
Brilliant.
But the important 3% didn't, so that was a bit of a fail, to say the least.
Actually,
I'm currently talking to Matt from the A320 podcast,
who's hopefully our guest.
A technical moment.
Yes.
So what I'm going to do, as you guys read the first two stories,
yes,
I'm just going to go away and do a bit of remote tech support.
Okay, very good. Okay.
You would think that an Airbus A320 captain could get his mic and headphones.
Oh, now stop it. Now play nice. Can I just say, Nev, while we've got you, in case you do disappear, because it's going to take you a long time to get this sorted, can I just say congratulations on your little Q&A the other night, actually. That was thoroughly enjoyable.
Very nice.
Really enjoyed that.
I had some very good responses to that. I had some very interesting responses from my boss, but we won't go into that right now.
No, okay.
But he's a very nice fellow, of course. But no, it was very good. Enjoyed doing it. And I think Carlos is going to have a go next Wednesday.
Now, Carlos, what are you doing this week? So we had a little chat about this beforehand.
Yeah, so this week we thought we'd not only would I open myself to various questions from the community, but also I do love a quiz. Yeah. And we do love a quiz on the show. So this week we will be doing a pixelated picture quiz. Ooh. And I will say I have 10 very well pixelated photos, a few of which will throw some people out. So I'm looking forward to seeing just how many of you guys and girls will be able to see what these aircraft are. Okay.
Is this going to be one where you've set the bar so high that nobody will get any of the answers right?
No. I'm very confident. I'm very confident that our community will be fine.
Very good. Okay. Now, hopefully, fingers crossed, technology permitting, I've just had a very exciting text message that rather suggests that hopefully on the other end of the line is a Mr. Matt. Matt, how are you?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes! Yay! I'm so happy! Yes! Woohoo! Winning! Hello!
At last, had major issues there.
Very good. Well done. Well done. I'm very, very pleased that you've been able to join us. I was getting very worried there for a minute. Right.
How are things, Matt? Obviously, you're not too busy at the moment, but I'm sure you're obviously hitting the books.
Actually, yeah, but not my books. I'm homeschooling at the moment, so I thought I'd have loads of free time, but turns out, no. Yeah. Very busy, actually.
Yeah, it's the trouble when you've got children, isn't it? They have to be, they have to sort of be entertained, and you can't just leave them in front of an iPad all day.
No, exactly.
I'm actually in the process of putting a little help package together for Matt. I'll just show you for the benefit of the camera. I'm just going to send this to Matt.
Oh, are you?
He's trying to get me divorced, I think.
Right. Indeed, yes, absolutely.
I better not do that, actually, because that probably won't help.
No, absolutely. It's he loves his children. Don't do it to him. Anyway, we should probably get on with the show.
Yes, we should. So we are going to start the show then, as we do each week, with our rundown of the weekly news from around the world and the UK. So if you're ready, guys...
we are now.
I think so. Yes, absolutely. Fingers crossed, everyone. Let's hope this all works. Oh, the touchscreen's just gone down. Oh no.
It was the other day, wasn't it?
Yes, I'm not loving this. I've got to be honest. It's all right. I'll do it by a mouse. We've obviously got the touchscreen. Here we go. Brace yourselves, everyone. Off we go.
So, kicking us week's first news story. This one is on flightglobal.com. It's the one with the amazing font we all know and love. So this headline on the story for this week is Crisis Accelerates Approval of A320 seat bag cargo modification. So European regulators have approved an interior modification for A320 family jets, which enables seats to be converted into cargo transport facilities after an accelerated development effort in the wake of the coronavirus crisis. The cargo seat bag configuration has been developed by Baltic parts firm Qatar Airways and design specialist J&C Aero, and and is intended for commercial and humanitarian supply transport. It comprises of a kit for a triple-seat block, enabling up to 75 kilos of cargo to be stored on the seat, as well as another 9 kilos below, a total of more than 250 kilos for each block. The kit can be easily installed within several minutes, says the development team, adding that it's capable of hosting mail, electronics, medical equipment, and humanitarian aid. J&C Aero Chief Commercial Officer Lunas Shuk says work on the modification commenced last year, but he says that with increasing evidence of developing contagions earlier this year, the team put additional resources into the program in February in order to secure faster certification. The modification has obtained supplementary type certification from the European Union Aviation Safety Agency, and they say that being able to promptly temporarily apply modifications for passengers' cabins for cargo purposes may allow aircraft operators to increase cargo capacities, says Calibri Aero Chief Andreas Norkobaksis. What a name. Pointing out that the dormant passenger aircraft are being recruited as freighters to maintain supply lines. Now, I'm guessing, obviously this is a brilliant idea, but I'm guessing it takes quite a long time to remove every single seat from inside an aircraft. So I suppose this kind of does away with having to take the whole interior of the aircraft out. Obviously, Matt, you obviously fly the 320, so I'm guessing you probably have an idea of just how long it takes to remove a section of seating.
Yeah, I mean, something like this, some airlines obviously have this set up all the time. So, for example, Titan or something like that, where they do post, they actually have special seating that slides out very quickly. So an airline like that is already set up for it. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a massive job. It would be in the hangar for quite a while. You imagine how long it would take even to just unbolt all the seats, let alone all the other stuff. Even more so if they have in-flight entertainment, you have all the wiring and stuff. So yeah, it's a huge job. So I think this is a great idea. And like the article says, there's a huge amount of resources out there of aircraft sat on the tarmac, isn't there?
Obviously, you're used to carrying passengers all the time, Matt, but would you mind doing a bit of freight work yourself?
No. Doesn't really make much difference to us what's behind the door. It depends which airline you work for. The issue can be, of course, getting a dangerous goods license. So a lot of airlines that don't normally carry cargo wouldn't have one. So it depends on what your normal operations are. And you'd be surprised some of the things that actually count as dangerous goods is not just flammables and things. Lots of things count as dangerous goods.
Oh, indeed. Also, let's not forget here, we've got I mean, they're not the only airline that, or the plane that are doing these sort of aid flights. Of course, Air Baltic did an aid flight with an A320 flying 6 hours and 35 minutes.
Wow.
Now, I don't know a lot about this, but when we were having our little production meeting, apparently that's quite a long time for an A320.
Yeah, it's a very, very long way for an A320, yeah.
Absolutely. And it was going from, China to somewhere else.
Latvia, to Riga in Latvia, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Carrying
absolutely.
nearly 1 million face masks.
Wow.
That is that. Wizz Air as well, flying from Hungary to China via Kazakhstan and Russia. The flight helped to deliver 11 tons of medical equipment, including protective gear and test kits as well.
Oh, cool.
So, Nev, what's Airbus doing with this one as well?
How do you mean? Sorry.
He means Aer Lingus.
No, Airbus is doing is also taking one of their test A350-1000s that me and Nev flew on to Tianjin.
Oh, okay.
To take medical supplies back to Europe. This flight AIB 101 is live. Well, at the time of this, it was live on Flight Radar 24. Actually, I will say, on the words of Flight Radar 24, for those of you who use Flight Radar 24, other apps are available, obviously.
Are there?
But there has been, I will say that this week there has been an increased amount of military aircraft, as in the A330 MRTT and also the C-17 Globemaster, that has been actually visible on Flight Radar 24. And now, normally, most military aircraft isn't
no
visible on,
right.
on Flight Radar 24. So that's been
okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. the other thing that's sort of interesting, just to round this off, really, Aer Lingus operating a service from Dublin to Beijing. This operation will include, or has included, multiple flights using volunteer pilots, which is a nice touch. So these are people like the pilots and ground crew that are all with us, and while maybe not on the very front lines, are vital people in the chain, moving much needed supplies around the world. Irish Air Traffic Control had this to say when the flight arrived at Dublin Airport.
Dublin, good afternoon, Shamrock 9019, descending flight level 160, passing flight level 19. It's A330 with Yankee and Heathrow Top.
Shamrock 9019, Falsher Walia. Dublin ATC are proud to be guiding you home today. On behalf of the IAA and the entire nation, I would like to express our appreciation for your efforts during this time. I believe there's a red carpet rolled out for you, so clear direct to Neckle, and you can expect straight in.
Direct to Neckle, and thanks for all the support. We really appreciate it. Shamrock 9019.
Shamrock 9019, descend to flight level 140.
Flight level 140, Shamrock 9019.
I mean, how nice is that?
That's really nice, isn't it?
It is, yeah, absolutely. It's nice to sort of see that obviously that there are horrendous things going on as far as the aviation industry is concerned. It's nice actually to sort of see that it's doing some good, if you like, with this horrendous fight going on.
Now, the next story, Matt, which is for you. I mean,
yes.
I know it's not Halloween, so don't get too worried.
Nobody panic. Yeah.
But this next story does involve ghost flights.
Okay, yes, that's correct. So this is on what's rapidly becoming our favourite website at the moment, mainly because they seem to be making an effort to sort of find cheerier stories, shall we say, or ones that don't involve that word too much. This is on the simpleflying.com, and the headline is Ryanair is operating ghost flights around airports. Here's why. So if you live near a Ryanair base, you may have noticed something strange recently. The airline has been operating ghost flights in order to ensure that their aircraft remain flying. Of course, on such short hops, the aircraft is empty. Many airlines have taken the difficult decision to ground their fleets. Examples include British Airways and Lufthansa. However, Ryanair is taking a different course of action. The Irish low-cost carrier has kept its fleet in the skies. It appears as though most of its grounded aircraft are being flown once every 4 days to maintain their operational availability. So by doing this, is keeping aircraft ready for flight is the next headline. If aircraft have been grounded for any significant periods of time, they are required to be checked over before returning to the skies. This means that the aircraft is unavailable for a longer period, as the airline must pay to have the aircraft checked over. As a result, Ryanair is flying most of its grounded aircraft at least once every 4 days, even if this means taking off to land straight away, according to Flight Radar 24. The airline has 451 Boeing 737-800s in its fleet. Simple Flying sampled the data from 47 of the airline's aircraft chosen randomly. This means that around 10% of the fleet were sampled. Of these aircraft, all bar one had been flown recently. However, since Ryanair began to ground aircraft, 35 of the aircraft whose data we sampled had been flown in loops around the airport. The remaining 11 aircraft had been in service at least once every 4 days. In most cases, these ghost flights involved the aircraft taking off and then immediately returning to the airport. So it's just like a fancy go-around, I suppose, is it? It's just that you're actually touching the tarmac. And some saw the addition of a couple of interesting loops and turns here and there. So environmentally friendly is the next headline. As Ryanair claims to be the greenest airline in Europe, with just 69 grams of CO2 per passenger per kilometre recorded during February. However, each time one of the airline's Boeing 737 aircraft takes off for such a flight, it's emitting CO2 into the atmosphere. As there are no passengers on these aircraft, the emissions build up the average for the airline. Simple Flying contacted Ryanair regarding its ghost flights. An airline spokesman said, in order to ensure our aircraft are serviceable for both passenger repatriation flights and essential flights for the transportation of urgent medical supplies, some of our crew and aircraft must remain available and serviceable in line with Boeing requirements and EASA regulations. Now, it is more than fair if the airline wants to make sure some of its aircraft remain serviceable. However, it appears as though it is making sure that most of its fleet remains serviceable. The airline itself has said that it doesn't expect to operate the majority of its flights until June at the earliest, which could mean another 2 months of aircraft emissions without passengers. I mean, let's be honest, guys, this is a ridiculously unprecedented time, isn't it? What do you reckon, Nev?
I'm just seeing what the takeoff performance must be for these aircraft.
With no one on board, yeah.
I mean, Nev, you've obviously flown on the Neo, which has obviously got some fairly good power behind it.
I think they'd be on a very big flex takeoff because although the temptation would be to have a toga power takeoff on these things, I don't think that's really allowed. So maybe if you're about to retire, it's your last flight, maybe you might want to do that. But no, I think some sensible approach has to be taken with these very lightly laden aircraft. I saw a YouTube video yesterday actually that a Mentor pilot put up about some of the, not challenges, but some of the operational considerations that you must have when you're thinking about doing ferry flights or lightly laden aircraft. It's actually far more of a bigger checklist than I would have thought, actually. So, and operational procedures do change from one airline to the other. So we'll have a look at his YouTube channel to see about that as well.
Oh, I like that, definitely.
How about you, Matt? Obviously, the 320 you fly, you fly the Neo as well?
Yeah, I've flown the Neo. Yeah, it's definitely very overpowered. You certainly wouldn't want to be doing a toga takeoff in one empty, that's for sure.
Is that something you've done very often with the airline you fly for, have a flight that's either empty or very, very light?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it happens all the time, but yeah, there's often ferry flights, so we're often positioning out. And certainly in the last few weeks when we were doing repatriation flights, we were flying out empty and then bringing UK citizens back. So yeah, it's not unusual, certainly.
But puts a whole new meaning to the word thrust, I expect.
Yeah, absolutely. Some of the I've got some of the pictures here from the circuits that they've been doing, certainly around like the airports that they fly out of here, which is sort of quite interesting. So they are literally sort of just doing little circuits. Just as you've got some doing figure of eights, you've got a triangle on one of them. I mean, it's they're also saying about these the emissions and stuff. But I say these are ridiculous times at the moment, aren't they? So you can't be at all surprised, really. I guess that I don't know. It's per passenger the numbers might not be great, but I can't say this is. I don't suppose it's doing a great deal of harm to the industry, to the atmosphere, the environment, should I say, with all these aircraft on the ground.
Well, especially considering all the other aircraft that aren't flying at the moment.
Yeah, indeed.
But apart from it being slightly interesting, it's a complete non-story, really. I mean, it's just an aeroplane going up and flying around for 20 minutes or so and coming back.
Yeah, I know, mate, but we're struggling, frankly, to find anything vaguely cheerful in
Oh, yes, yeah. For them to publish it in the first place as a negative thing on Ryanair,
These airlines should offer us aircraft enthusiasts a chance just to go on these flights for free.
Yes,
that's my thought.
There is a small issue with that, though. Of course, the thing of social distancing. I mean, you've got to be a bit careful when it.
Yeah, well, that's fine. Ned would be in seat 1A.
Right.
I'd be in seat 4A.
Okay. Yeah, no, well, that's fair enough. Now, actually, while we're talking about sort of ghost flights and things like this, because obviously, Carlos, you've got a little bit more time on your hands than you've had of late, let's be honest. And so now you sent me a little video here. I mean, there's been quite a lot of this going on, I notice here. So talk me through this particular approach that you said. So this is X-Plane that you recorded this with, yeah?
Yeah, X-Plane 11. This was Captain Al who challenged me to make an approach into Eindhoven Airport.
Right.
He gave me the weather conditions to input into because you can program your own weather.
Right. Talk me through that.
So we've got winds, 32 knot crosswinds, gusting to 52 knots.
Right.
So it's fairly breezy, as you can probably see.
Dear. Bit of a wobble there, mate. Yeah.
By this time, I'd obviously told the crew to sit down in the
Right,
back.
I should hope so. Yes, absolutely.
So the weather conditions are actually, the weather conditions are very windy. It was actually real time when I'd done this. So the time was actually at the particular time of the day when, in the afternoon, this afternoon when I'd done this. But yeah, Eindhoven, I hadn't actually never done this approach before in Eindhoven, so this was a first. This was a first one for me.
Right. Okay. So you're on approach. What's the runway number for Eindhoven?
That was, oh God, I had it written down somewhere.
Okay.
I think it was.
We'll see it when we come over the numbers.
Yes,
you'll see it when you come over the numbers. Yeah. It was runway 21. Runway 21.
I'll be honest with you, mate. This is a bit wobbly. I would be throwing up about now.
Come on, I'm not doing too bad considering the wind.
Okay, and what are you flying in here? So this is a 737-800. It's a Ryanair.
This was a 737. Yeah, Ryanair 737-800. So
okay.
I think I came in a little bit too high on the approach.
Oh, he's well past the touchdown.
Just a little bit.
All right, thanks, Matt. All right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Here we go. Down we go. Right. So while
yeah, see now, I got down in one piece.
Right. Okay. So what was the problem then?
The problem was I had set the runway conditions to be patchy wet.
Right.
And at one point I did. There we go. It was starting to get a bit wobbly and stuff, and then things start to go a little bit wrong.
Oh no.
And things at the end went terribly wrong.
Right.
For not quite for me at the front of the aircraft, but for the passengers in the rear of the aircraft. What happened next was quite upsetting, I think. But Matt, you've got the picture. You've actually got the picture of
where you ended up, essentially. Yeah. This. I mean, it's not the most ideal resting of aircraft. It has to be honest.
Matt laughing.
I mean, that's not really what you look for in a landing. Although I have to say that a very good friend of mine, who I also played this footage and showed this picture to, did say who used to work for Ryanair, basically said that as long as they sold some scratch cards in the back there, he's happy. So I mean, nobody died. That's the positive.
They've been charging the passengers for some barbecue tickets as well, haven't they?
Laura Davis in the chat room says that will be a meeting with the chief pilot for sure.
Yes, I think there'll be. I think there'll be a bit of a chat going on there. Won't there?
Bring your own biscuits.
Cool. Yeah, that one's going to go on for quite a long time, I suspect. Yeah.
Oh dear. Still, that was rather exciting. So moving on.
No, please don't. I was really enjoying that. Anyone else want to ridicule Carlos while he's still here?
No. On a plus side to that, on the plus note to that, I should say, Captain Al has sent me another set of stuff to input into the flight sim for me to try later. So I should be making another attempt on that runway.
Maybe we should make it a feature every week.
See how well Carlos has got on. Yeah, absolutely.
Just before we move on, I thought it's worth mentioning actually that people might not realise this, but aeroplanes actually do hate being left. And even if it's only for 3 days, it can actually have a significant effect on nothing major, but when you first start the aircraft up, you might have some things that need a reset or stuff, and they just hate being left. So quite often, if we have aircraft that could be left for a period, they will keep the APUs running or certainly keep them powered and running because they really do hate it. So it's not just about the licensing and keeping them going. No. It can actually affect them, just like a car hates being left.
Oh, I mean, like batteries go flat and all sorts, don't they? If they sort of,
exactly, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point actually. I completely understand why they're doing it. As I say, and I do think it's like people have literally got it out for Ryanair, aren't they? They're literally sort of saying, their carbon footprint is being ruined by all this, and it's just like, this is a ridiculous time at the moment. It's I think they can be forgiven for trying to keep their their fleet.
I think we'll let them off a teaspoon, equivalent of a teaspoon of fuel. Yeah,
well, quite, indeed.
So moving on to the next story, which is for Nev. Now, this one features a name of a certain chap that when I hear this name mentioned, it just makes me think of an ITV programme from the 1990s.
Yes, that's right. Well, this is on the flightglobal.com website. And, of course, we all know Stelios of EasyJet, the founder of EasyJet, as a nice, cuddly chap, very, very, what's the word I'm looking for? Very good sort of PR kind of fella. But interesting enough, it says here that EasyJet founder Stelios has followed through on his threat to start dismantling the airline's board if it fails to cancel its Airbus order, requesting a shareholder meeting to discuss the removal of Andreas as a director. The UK budget carrier disclosed in a 2nd of April regulatory filing that it has received a requisition notice from Easy Group Holdings proposing a resolution to remove Beerworth from the board. Stelios had warned in late March that unless the airline terminated its contract with Airbus for additional aircraft, citing the coronavirus pandemic as a justification, he would instigate a rolling programme to remove a non-executive director every 7 weeks, starting with Beerworth. EasyJet's founder has described the carrier's outstanding contract for the future delivery of 107 aircraft, including A320neo and A321neo jets, as a risk to survival in the current situation. EasyJet had advised its shareholders to take no action at the current time. The board is considering the contents of the requisition notice, and further announcements will be made as appropriate, says the airline. Bernstein analyst Daniel Roska questions the timing of Stelios' intervention. In a 2nd of April research note, he writes, at a time when EasyJet's entire fleet is grounded, this is not the time to distract management with what could evolve into a proxy fight, both from the removal and for a potential new election ensuing that step. Roska added that the founder's actions could result in a prolonged attention-draining exercise and might be detrimental to EasyJet's longer-term future. There is no doubt in our mind that all the airlines have to attempt to delay all capex in the immediate future, but that is not the question. Easy Group has requested to cancel the Airbus's order altogether, he writes. We are uncertainty of the practicality of this as long as EasyJet remains a going concern, and would assume that there will be penalties involved. And from a strategic point of view, we would see the new aircraft strengthening EasyJet's long-term position. On the internet, there is I think it's about a 4-page letter that Stelios has written to the shareholding board. And he does not pull any punches. That's all I'm going to say about it.
Oh, wow.
And this fella means business here. So, but at the end of the day, he's the majority shareholder. So he must carry some weight and some influence. So, but it's a difficult one to call, isn't it? Because what's going to happen at the end of all this? So let's fast forward to, let's say, October, possibly something like that, and we're all back and flying again. The skiing season's up and running. People are fed up because they want to go on holiday. They will need some new aircraft, obviously, to handle some of this, I would imagine, too. But it's a very difficult call, and it's also a bit too early to call it, I think, but it's not my train set. So,
but, I mean, nobody really knows how long we're going to be in lockdown for. This is the other issue, isn't it? I mean, we don't know how long this is going to go on for. You know, and let's be honest, if any of us had a crystal ball, we'd have all made very different decisions, perhaps, in life, never mind in regards to this. So it's... Yes, he, as I say, he's not exactly sort of shy in coming forward if he's got a
He's had a bit of a rant, let's be honest.
Yes, okay. Well,
and with some justification possibly as well. So
yeah, exactly. I mean, and also some of this is about survival, isn't it? As well, at the end of the day, you don't want to be sort of wasting money perhaps on doing things like buying new aircraft or whatever, just to it's bad news for, say, people like Airbus and stuff. I know, but the trouble is, if the airline doesn't survive all of this, then buying a new aircraft is irrelevant if they go bust, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Indeed.
Let's
move on before we get into trouble.
Yeah.
Yes.
Our guest, Matt, this next story is moving across to the UAE.
Yes. So this one is Emirates start flying a limited number of passenger flights. So all flights in and out of the UAE had been suspended owing to the COVID-19 outbreak, but Emirates has received approval from the UAE authorities to start flying a limited number of passenger flights starting on April the 6th. So Sheikh Ahmed bin Saeed Al Maktoum, president, no conflict of interest here, president of the Dubai Civil Aviation and chairman and CEO of Emirates Airline and Group, tweeted on Thursday that these limited flights will carry residents and visitors in the UAE who wish to return to their countries. His tweet said, over time, Emirates looks forward to the gradual resumption of passenger services in line with lifting of travel and operational restrictions, including assurance of health measures to safeguard our people and customers. Their safety and well-being will always be our top priority, he said. Emirates Sky Cargo will use these flights to support trade activities, his tweet added. And so that's all the information he's gone through so far. I had a look at the actual tweets themselves. It says pretty much that. I think they're translated from Arabic because he always tweets in both. So I think that's them.
Okay.
Yeah, and he just said, another one, he just said that with the start of limited passenger services from Dubai next week, Emirates will bring UAE nationals home for free on all flights. UAE nationals currently stranded overseas can contact their closest UAE embassy for assistance. Emirates stands with the UAE.
Yeah,
so there you go.
Yeah, absolutely. It's as I say, from Emirates.com, it does say basically this is a rough summary. So initial flights to commence from Dubai to London, Heathrow, Frankfurt, Paris, Zurich, and Brussels. We will operate a modified in-flight service program to these flights. Magazines and other print reading materials will not be available, and while food and beverages will continue to be offered on board, packaging and presentation will be modified to reduce contact during meal service and the risk of infection. Emirates lounge and chauffeur-driven services will be temporarily unavailable during this period. All Emirates aircraft will go through enhanced cleaning and disinfection processes in Dubai after each journey. And then it does say on the last bit here, I don't know, yeah, so anyway, that disappeared. No fun. Right, yeah, so that's the summary, really. So, I mean, in lots of ways, in these weird times, it's actually sort of quite exciting that they'll... flights could be starting again. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know whether that's too early. We want to risk a bounce back of this virus, do we? To be honest, I haven't seen much in the news. I don't know how heavily they are affected in the UAE with COVID-19.
From what I understand at the moment, they're more or less, well, it's certainly as far as the airline is concerned, it is shut down, more or less, apart from, I think, some cargo stuff that they were doing sort of prior to this anyway. But I think they've been affected certainly as badly, perhaps, as all other airlines. I think it's...
I was thinking more from the country of viruses and deaths and stuff. I don't know how...
Well,
it is in the UAE.
I think the trouble is with the UEA. No,
UEA. That's in Norwich.
That is in Norwich. I think the problem with the UEA. Never mind. UAE.
Do you want a beer, Matt?
No.
Okay.
I've had enough. Clearly, is that. Shall we say information is not usually forthcoming from there anyway, and they, to be fair, they're also not the only country that sort of made the decision that if we don't test people for it, then they don't have it. So I don't think we'll ever truly know the figures. To be fair, I don't think we'll know the figures here in the UK either. It's just one of those things. Anyway, we don't want to be talking about that. So we should probably sort of think about moving on, really. But it's. Interesting times.
So the next story, this is a nice story. We like a nice story in this current climate on PTUK. This one is on simpleflying.com. And the headline, Virgin Atlantic and EasyJet crew to assist NHS against coronavirus. So the COVID-19 pandemic, which is devastating the airline industry and putting thousands upon thousands of employees out of work worldwide. So the UK is solving two problems with one swift move. The National Health Service, the NHS, is aiming to put Virgin Atlantic and EasyJet staff to work at its Nightingale hospitals as part of the fight against the coronavirus. According to Virgin Atlantic press release, the two airlines are asking staff who have not been working since the COVID-19 pandemic started to consider helping at the new hospitals being built across the country. These hospitals are being referred to as Nightingale hospitals. They are part of the larger Project Nightingale, which is the NHS organised response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Virgin Atlantic has had to ground roughly 85% of its fleet due to lack of demand and strict travel restrictions around the world, and EasyJet has had to do the same for its fleet. But specific numbers for the airline are unavailable. As a result, over 13,000 employees across the two airlines may have had the time to contribute to the urgent need. In fact, budget carrier EasyJet has written to its 9,000 UK-based staff. Of this, the group 4,000 are cabin crew who are trained in CPR. Virgin Atlantic will soon write to approximately 4,000 of their staff as of Monday, the 30th of March. The airline says it will prioritise those with the required skills and training. Those who make the decision to sign up for this important work will perform clinical support roles. These jobs will fall under the close instruction of certified nurses, senior clinicians on the wards at the NHS Nightingale hospitals across the country. Support workers can expect to change beds, tend to patients and assist doctors and nurses on the wards. The NHS has confirmed that the facilities that are being built in London, Birmingham and Manchester, while other additional sites are being considered. The most notable Nightingale Hospital being in the facility in London, which would otherwise be normally called the Excel Centre, one place I know very well indeed.
Well, yeah, me too,
which is a large exhibition centre in East London. So why airline staff? Well, there are many aspects of the job that make the airline workers suitable and suitably fit as well. In fact, many airline staff are first aid trained or hold other clinical qualifications, as well as being security cleared as well. Important. Furthermore, NHS clinicians will oversee their work. Expert training will be provided to all new recruits when they sign up as well. Staff and volunteers working at the new hospitals will be offered free accommodation. Those staying at the hotels will have breakfast provided, lunch and dinner, depending on their time or shift. So the conclusion, this sounds like an amazing opportunity to assist in the fight against the pandemic. The media has made the point over and over again that the greater public needs to support the overworked and tired frontline healthcare workers. And this looks like a great way to do so. The job is not without its own risks, of course. However, many airline workers are excellent at dealing with people and working under stressful conditions, especially if you're a Jet2 cabin crew, all while putting on a brave face. Now, I think this is really, really, really good for the whole effort and what's going on.
And also, I mean, to be fair, it does say also that, you know, it's not without its risks, is it? Let's be honest.
Oh, no.
They are putting you know, in the same. I mean, we were saying at before the show started, weren't we? I mean, I know your long-suffering wife, bless her, is very much. She's not front line, but obviously she is working for the NHS, and
she is, yeah.
You know, and dealing with you know, what I call the important, like the managerial side of things. I mean, it is a thing. I mean, and I must admit, I certainly here in the UK. And I hope everybody's been doing it. We seem to be in a bit of a habit, don't we, at the moment on a Thursday, of all standing outside our front doors and, you know, cheering and clapping and you know, banging saucepans or whatever. And I just sort of think, you know, this is a great story, as you say. And let's be honest, cabin crew are probably the most patient people you'll ever come across. So if anybody can keep the public at bay, I think they can.
And also the great thing is, it says on that story that these crew are going to be given additional training and stuff. So
yeah,
you know, when they go eventually, because they will eventually hopefully go back into their positions within the airlines again, you know, these crew are going to go back with loads of additional
absolutely
knowledge,
first aid trained and all that kind of thing. It says, it does also say actually that those who accept the work will be paid as airline employees with support from the UK government. However, signing up for the work is completely voluntary. So well, and I guess if, you know, I mean, some cabin crew, I don't suppose not many cabin crew will have what I call underlying health conditions, I guess. But
what do you think of this, Matt? Because obviously you work with crews and stuff when you're as the pilot. Obviously, all crews are all trained, medically trained. You know, this must be good, quite heartwarming, I think.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea, and obviously a lot of my colleagues I'm friends with on social media and stuff, and I see quite a lot of them have applied and they've shown pictures of themselves queuing up to volunteer and stuff. It's quite good. I think it's nice that it highlights to the world actually how highly trained cabin crew are, because you know, a lot of the Joe public think all they do is
trolley
serve tea and coffee.
Yeah.
Exactly, and they don't see the long training course that they have to do. And of their training course, I can't remember how long it is, but it's weeks long. I think it's only like the last day or two that it's on customer service, as in you know, serving and how they do the food services and stuff like that.
Yeah, so much of it is about safety, isn't it? I mean, I seem to recall from conversations I've had with friends who are cabin crew and that. I mean, the training is a good 6 weeks. You know,
it's significant.
As you say, and a very small element of that is actually about, you know, in-flight service, if you like. Almost all of it is about safety and getting people off the plane if there's something wrong, various drills and all that kind of thing. I'd say these are seriously qualified people, aren't they? I mean, you know, they get a terrible rep.
You know, and it's annually as well. You know, they have their retraining. It's not just like they do it once and then that's it. They have retraining. They have, you know, especially larger airlines, they have a lot of influence where they work. Well, all the airlines work together, plus they work with the different medical practices. So, you know, certainly in the UK, the airlines will be talking to Public Health England and places like that, getting the latest information, because they're always changing their SOPs, you know, how, for example, with CPR, how many breaths and all that sort of stuff, it's always kept up to date.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's a good mixture with, good mixture with like EasyJet and Virgin, because you've got a short haul and a long haul airline of which the cabin crew will have completely different skill sets. So, for example, a long haul airline like Virgin, they don't have anyone to call. You know, a European short haul airline, you can get on the ground in 30 minutes wherever you are, whereas, you know, you could be exactly halfway across the Atlantic. It's going to be hours before you get on the ground. So they have very different skills and equipment available to them, because they have to take into account that they can still actually be airborne for a long time with a medical emergency.
So actually, Matt, one of the questions. Sorry, Matt. Matt Smith.
So many Matts. So many Matts.
Matt C. Well, one of the questions I was going to ask you, Matt, before we move on, is how much medical training, first aid training, do you get as pilots, or is that something that pilots don't have to do?
We don't get so much, actually. We do some basic stuff on our initial training, or certainly at my airline we did some initial stuff, but to be honest, no, we don't do it as a recurrent. We don't really have a use for it, because we would never get involved in anything like that.
Interesting.
Well, Nev, I hope you on your street. I mean, certainly here it was really noisy here Thursday night, with everybody sort of cheering the NHS. I hope Stone was very much on it.
Well, it was, but as usual, I missed the point slightly because I was doing some recording. I'm going, what's all that noise outside? I opened and went, oh, yes, hello.
Yes, hello, well done. Yes, Ray.
So, I wasn't quite on message there.
It's great, though, isn't it? I mean, I just love how we're sort of all coming together, if you like, to sort of support these people who are literally, I mean, it's awful, isn't it? But the people are putting their lives on the line here, aren't they? Oh, yeah. And I include Gemma, the long-suffering wife of Carlos, in that. You know, it's just, I doff my cap to all of you. Anyway, we should move on.
So the next story, is for you, actually, Matt. And, yes. It's regarding an airline in the UK. Well, it's actually Scottish based, but this is one of those airlines with an interesting tail art.
Yes, absolutely. You can't beat a nice tartan, can you? That's the long. So that'll give you a clue. So it's thebusinesstraveller.com is the website. And the headline is, Loganair flies to Heathrow for the very first time. Scottish airline Loganair has begun flying into London Heathrow for the first time. It has transferred its regular link between the Isle of Man and London from City Airport, which is temporarily closed, to Heathrow. Readers will be pleased to learn that Loganair will be using Terminal 5, the home of British Airways, which has consolidated its Heathrow operations at Terminal 5. The single flight, which operates on most days, is scheduled as follows. So it's BA 3285, so it's the Isle of Man to London Heathrow, departs 12:25 and arrives at 2 p.m. BA 3288, London Heathrow to the Isle of Man, departs 18:40 and arrives back in the Isle of Man at 8 o'clock. So Loganair's CEO, Jonathan Hinkles, posted the above image on his LinkedIn page at the carrier, which I'll pop up in a moment, which has provided Business Traveller with the following statement from Hinkles. The London City to Isle of Man service that Loganair normally operates for BA City Flyer has been moved to London Heathrow temporarily, at least until the end of April. London City is closed temporarily, and BA has asked us to run the Isle of Man's essential air service to Heathrow in the short term, so as to keep the route open. Apologies for the dog going nuts there. Humble apologies. The Isle of Man has long wanted an air link into London Heathrow. Last year, Flybe restarted the link after a gap of 20 years, but of course Flybe is no longer. Readers wishing to make reservations will find schedule details and so on available from BA. So this is this something they operate on behalf of BA, or is it like a code share type thing? Are there occasions where BA might be doing the flight themselves?
No, I think it's a bit of code share thing, and I'd like to congratulate the businesstraveller.com actually having the correct airplane for.
I know this is such a rare thing.
I was going to say, it must be so strange for Heathrow to see an ATR 42 coming in.
I can't remember the last time an ATR 42 went in and out of Heathrow. I can't think of who that would have been, actually. Obviously, we've had the Flybe fleet. I can't remember. They were running Dash 8s, weren't they?
What about Air Aaron? Did they used to fly them in there?
They did, yes. You could be right. And there was also KLM had their Fokker 50 turbo prop that went to.
I beg your pardon.
Language, so interesting, yeah. But the service to the Isle of Man, to the mainland UK, is vital. You can't not
very
run
much
it.
so.
Oh yeah,
So,
yeah,
100%.
So from one story with a picture that is correct, on to the next story for you, Nev. All about BA and their tier points, which I'm sure you've got millions of.
Well, it's taken me long enough to get there, just at the time when it all shuts down, So, again, on the same website, businesstraveller.com, British Airways Executive Club members worrying about attaining upcoming tier renewals while global travel restrictions remain in place have been thrown a lifeline by the carrier. The airline had announced that it is reducing tier point thresholds by 30% for all members due for renewal in April, May and June. In addition, BA is extending the validity of its gold upgrade vouchers and companion vouchers earned through British Airways branded credit cards by 6 months. This will happen automatically and members will be able to see the extension in their accounts. Specifically, there will be a 6-month extension to unredeemed gold upgrade vouchers and companion vouchers or travel together tickets earned through a British Airways credit card, a 6-month extension to redeemed gold upgrade vouchers and companion vouchers earned through British Airways credit cards that were applied for travel from the 1st of March 2020 or thereafter, and a 6-month extension to companion vouchers or travel together tickets earned through a British Airways credit card due to trigger in the next 3 months up to 30th of June 2020. Also, in connection with this week, the hotel group Hilton announced generous amendments to its Hilton Honours loyalty scheme, extending status privileges and pausing points expiration. So that's all very good, isn't it? But I'm not sure. Well, you've got to be a bit careful here because I think we've got slightly bigger problems to deal with at the moment rather than, retaining status and this sort of business. But we have to concede that when all this is over, we're all going to start flying again.
Well, let's hope
it's
so.
nice to think of a brighter future, isn't it, when we are flying again?
Yeah,
absolutely. Let's hope that doesn't take long, eh?
So are they going to give you 30% extra tier points for what you've already got, or is it in the future you'll get?
No, they're reducing the threshold basically. So
okay. So I've got 280 tier points. I need 300 to get to one above.
Sort of Rust Plus or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Nice.
Oh no, that's PIP status, isn't it? Sorry, I forgot.
Yeah. Actually, Nev, how long does your status last now? Is it a year?
Well, it's a year, but of course, in order to retain the gold status, I'll have to do, I'll have to get 1,500 tier points again for next year. But what they're saying here is that they're looking at to reduce that threshold possibly.
Top tip though, Neb, if you get pregnant, they'll extend it while you're pregnant.
Right.
So that's always a top tip.
Good to know.
Yeah. They'll freeze it. Yeah.
Mike has got an observation to share with you, Nev. Actually, he says, "Wait a minute, Nev. Does this mean that they're letting the riffraff in?"
Oh, I wouldn't go that far. No. Standards have to be maintained.
Well, of course.
Have you seen in Stephen H in the chat room his comments, Matt? Tier points lost, suitcase equals 100 tiers. 2-hour delay equals 50 tiers.
Right.
Emergency landing equals 500 tiers.
Okay. Okay. I get the feeling he's had a slightly negative experience. But
Yes.
there we go, all about fun.
That'd be brilliant, because I'd have gold already by now, I think.
Yeah.
Not quite.
I mean, Matt Smith would have diamond, and he's hardly,
I don't know what to do with that information.
I do remember a time they left, when the kids were younger, they left our children's buggy in Florida, and then it turned up about 2 weeks later in about 20 pieces.
Ooh.
That's good.
Oh, no, you don't need that.
To be fair, they were very good, though, actually. They asked me the make and model, and then the next day shipped out a brand new one in its box. So I didn't complain in the end, actually.
Yeah. I must remember to mention my Audi A6 I've got. Anyway, moving on to the next story.
Yes, okay.
Our guest, Matt, here from the A320 podcast. This one is for you. This one is, well, it's all about an aircraft that we love, but it's got a slight engine issue.
Oh, yes. So this is the A220, and this is from Flight Global, and it says the A220 uncontained engine failures linked to a resonance phenomenon. So the Airbus A220 operators have been instructed to remove certain full authority digital engine control software, or FADEC as we call that, and install a new version after a series of engine failures involving fracture of low pressure compressor rotors. 4 such incidents have been registered, says the US FAA, in a directive for the type's Pratt & Whitney PW15G power plant. Poor Pratt & Whitney, another issue for them here. 3 of the incidents last year involved Swiss aircraft, while the 4th last month affected an Air Baltic jet. Hopefully it didn't affect them on the way back from China. Can you imagine the irony of that,
Yes.
bringing all those masks back? So analysis has indicated that low-pressure compressor vane schedules were generated a condition within the engine that led to acoustic resonance and damaged the stage 1 rotor, says the FAA, leading to its failure. Interim action had already been ordered for A220s, including limiting thrust at high altitude to protect the aircraft against uncontained engine failure. But the analysis of the vane scheduler has prompted a revision of the FADEC software intended to avoid the resonance phenomenon. The latest directive instructs operators, now if you're really geeky or like this, operators to remove certain FADEC software earlier than version v2.11.9.2 and install an update. Engines which have accumulated less than 300 cycles must be modified within 15 cycles, others within 90 days. The FAA states that the failures of stage 1 rotors occurred on engines which have been shipped to operators as spares and were not delivered installed on aircraft. Failures occurred within 300 cycles of the subsequent installation. Spare engines which have been newly fitted to aircraft carry the highest risk of rotor failure, the FAA adds. That's quite interesting. It's quite interesting actually about resonance. I remember about 20 years ago, the Renault Megane had an issue where at an exact speed, I can't remember what it was, say 38 miles an hour, if you put your windscreen wipers on, the resonance affected the shock absorbers or the suspension, and the car would swerve all over the road uncontrollably because the resonance is matched up exactly at that speed.
Now, I do wonder if that's the first time ever that that an A220 has been compared to a Renault. It has to be.
Well, there you go.
Matt, you were going to say that when the Renault Megane approached V1 or something, I thought.
This is it. This is where I was
going, wasn't it?
This is it. Now, I'll be honest with you. Absolutely zero of that story made any sense to a moron like me. So, what do you mean by resonance?
So it's like a vibration. So for example, have you ever been on a turboprop? Sometimes the propellers make a noise like wow, wow.
Oh,
wow
right,
noise.
yes, yeah.
And that is where they're just slightly not in sync, and it can cause that resonance. So it's just a vibration.
Oh,
basically.
a vibration. Okay, right, yeah.
It's a vibration frequency. Nev will probably be able to tell you much more detail about frequencies and vibration.
Yes, right. Go on then, Nev. Geek off. Here we
Carry
go.
on, Nev.
Well, it's when if you imagine that if things are sort of perfectly in sync. Actually, you can hear it with speakers sometimes.
Yes.
If the speed of the drivers is very slightly different in a stereo pair, then you can get some very odd artifact noises, I would say.
Yeah.
But of course, you then translate that into an aircraft situation, and then you've got real vibration resonances going on, which aren't in sync, and that can start giving a lot of trouble. It's such a pity actually, because My current favourite aircraft is the A320. I would say they've done it's a great looking aircraft. And when Al and I went on it in Farnborough the last time we were there, the interior of the aircraft, the cockpit design, it's really nicely done. So it's a real pity that they've had these problems with Air Baltic and with Swiss as well.
Right. Okay.
Richard Adams in the chat room, Nev says, surely you only get good vibrations in 1A.
Yes, that is true. That is very true. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Good point. Well made.
Not.
Apparently, the Beach Boys had good vibrations as well, but
beat me to it.
I've got a headache.
So, moving swiftly on from that clanger, onto the airlinerwatch.com for the next story. Now, I like this. I don't know which one of you guys found a story this week, but I do like this story. It's it's quite interesting. This headline: first post-war passenger plane of Japan was transported to a theme park in Tokyo. So after leaving Haneda Airport at around midnight on the 28th of March, a trailer carrying the fuselage of the very first YS-11 propeller plane to roll off the production line passed through Shinagawa, and other city districts on a 5-hour, 120-kilometer journey to Hirosawa City Theme Park in Ibaraki Prefecture.
I'm so glad that I didn't get this story.
The wings and other, that's coming up later. The wings and other parts of the plane have already been shipped to the theme park in Chikusa, where mechanics will reassemble the aircraft over the coming months before it goes on display. And before being stored in a hangar at the Tokyo airport by the National Museum of Nature and Science for about 2 decades, the YS-11 was used by the Transport Ministry as a flight inspection plane. So the YS-11, so the NAMC YS-11 is a turboprop airliner designed and built by the Nihon Aircraft Manufacturing Corporation, or NAMC, or NAMAC. A Japanese consortium. It was the only post-war airliner to be wholly designed and manufactured in Japan until the development of the Mitsubishi SpaceJet during the 2010s, roughly 50 years later. The development of the YS-11 can be largely attributed to Japan's Ministry of International Trade and Ministry, which encouraged Japanese aircraft companies to collaborate on the development of a short-haul airliner as early as 1954. In 1959, NAMC was formed to design and produce an aircraft to satisfy the requirements dubbed the YS-11. On the 30th of August 1962, the first prototype performed its maiden flight. Deliveries commenced on the 30th of March 1965, and commercial operations began the following month. The majority of orders for the type were issued from various Japanese airliners, while sales to such customers were swift. The YS-11's initial years' availability, this limited market soon became saturated, leading to a slump in demand. Following efforts to acquire more sales from international customers, including the development of the improved YS-11A variant, production of the type ceased during 1974. Ultimately, while the YS-11 had demonstrated Japan's ability to produce an airliner, NAMC had accumulated considerable debts, and the type is largely considered to be a commercial failure. Large numbers of the type continued to be in service until 2006, at which point a tighter Japanese aircraft regulations imposed by the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure, Transport and Tourism necessitated either the withdrawal or refitting of all of the YS-11s. By 2018, only a single example reportedly remains in commercial service. Now, Nev, I was looking at the pictures earlier. I heard of this a long while ago, this aircraft, trying to think of what this aircraft is similar to in the UK, and all I could think about was like the British Aerospace, or the
I thought it was nearer to the Saab 340.
Saab 340, yeah.
But yes, a lot of similarities.
Richard Adams was saying the trim wheels look like some. This is from presumably from the cockpit picture that we put up. He says the trim wheels look like something from the Industrial Revolution. I like that.
But it's a shame it obviously didn't it wasn't the the crowning glory, but obviously it done well. It lasted a fairly long time, considering it was mid sort of early 1960s it came out. So good on them, I should say.
Yeah.
So the next story, Mr. Smith, the next one is for you, and we've got sort of, I say good news. It's delivering brand new aircraft.
I know, this is very exciting, and a very nice aircraft it is that's being delivered too. Let's be honest, because we are rather fond of this particular Boeing product. Simple Flying is the website, simpleflying.com. Excuse me, sorry, and the headline is Qatar Airways finally accepts its first Boeing 787-9s. So in the past week, 4 Boeing 787-9s have flown from Victorville, in California, to Doha in Qatar for delivery to Qatar Airways. However, it's not the first time these aircraft have landed at Hamad International, as they previously made the trip in December before promptly returning to the US. Hopefully this time they're here to stay. So the Middle East carrier Qatar Airways has finally taken delivery of its Boeing 787-9 Dreamliners. You may remember these aircraft have arrived with the carrier back in December last year, but had immediately returned to Victorville in California to have their interiors fitted. In fact, the Dreamliners should have been delivered in October 2019, but the airline pushed the delivery back due to difficulties in installing the modified version of the Q Suite product. Somebody explain to me what that is. What's the
Q Suite? Is like their posh first class?
Right. Yes,
kind
I'm
of.
with you. Yeah.
The ones we'll never be able to afford, man.
Right. Okay. Well, that's all I need to know then. Anyway. Yeah. So anyway, the highly regarded Q Seat already makes an appearance on its Boeing 777s and Airbus A350s, but its other Dreamliners, all 787-8s, currently have a reverse herringbone business class seat of the previous generation. The 787-9s, on the other hand, were due to be fitted with the very latest of the Q Suite. While not too many details have been revealed about the modified Q Suite, it was thought to be around 22% lighter than that on the 777 and the A380. Having pushed delivery back from October, Qatar officially took delivery in December in what was something of a ridiculous manner. 4 787-9s arrived in Doha on the Thursday the 26th in the evening, and then a further 3 arrived across the Atlantic on Saturday. But before the Saturday contingent arrived, the Thursday 4 had already started back to Victorville, passing each other en route. That's a bit silly, isn't it? So anyway, all 7 eventually arrived back in Victorville, where they have been ever since getting ready to fit these Q Suites and other components. This might seem ridiculous, but it was thought to be nuances around getting the planes registered in Qatar and exported from the US that led to this rather bonkers situation. So now, according to CH Aviation, the Dreamliners have started going back to Doha again. March 23rd saw the delivery of Alpha 7 Bravo Hotel Charlie and Alpha 7 Bravo Hotel Delta. They were ferried directly from Victoriaville to Doha's Hamad Airport, arriving just after 5 p.m. local time. So yeah, I mean, it's good news, really, isn't it? It's nice to hear in these times that there are still some aircraft going to customers.
Yeah, even if they are going to be parked up now for the foreseeable future. But
right,
no,
okay.
It's good to see that obviously aircraft being delivered, although it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the coming months now, whether all these aircraft are obviously still being produced. Boeing, I think, is still, and Airbus is still, I think, producing some aircraft. But
well, I'm glad someone is still. I mean, it's as I say, hopefully it's just temporary, isn't it? Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So moving on to the next story, Nev. This is regarding an airline that we don't often talk about in the show.
No, we don't. This is on the thepointsguy.com website, and it says that Royal Air Maroc joined the One World Alliance on Tuesday. After the culmination of nearly a 2-year process, it will see it become the Alliance's only African member. The Moroccan carrier's membership was effective from April the 1st. Confirmed One World spokesperson Gim Lei Yeo. The airline adds around 34 destinations, primarily in Africa, to the Alliance's network. Royal Air Maroc's entry into the Alliance came with little fanfare amid the novel coronavirus pandemic. The carrier has suspended all international flights due to the virus, with some domestic flights in Morocco still operating. However, Royal Air Maroc has already forged ties with some One World members. The carrier and American Airlines launched a code share in December, and it has partnerships in place with Qatar Airways and S7 Airlines. For US flyers, the entry of Royal Air Maroc into One World solidifies mileage earning opportunities with American, both for redeemable miles and for elite qualifying status. American was due to begin seasonal service to Royal Air Maroc's Casablanca hub on June the 4th. However, the Fort Worth, Texas-based carrier is slashing international capacity by 90% in May and postponing many seasonal routes due to the impact of COVID-19. Nichelle Tate, a spokesman for Air American, says the airline is still evaluating its summer schedules. If American launches its Casablanca flight as planned, passengers will be able to connect onward to numerous Royal Air Maroc destinations in Africa. Codeshare cities are due to include Abidjan, Côte d'Ivoire, which is ABG, Lagos, Nigeria, and Luanda in Angola. Royal Air Maroc serves Boston, Miami, New York, JFK, and Washington Dulles in the US, according to Cirium schedules. It's good to see that there is somebody else joining the One World Alliance. If I ever go to that part of the world, I can get me points as well.
It's all about the points, Nev.
All about the points. So Air Maroc, mostly a Boeing fleet for these guys. They did actually have 2 Maxes delivered to them last year. They've got 2 on order still. But apart from an Embraer, or 4 Embraer 190s and an ATR 72, they are mainly all Boeing fleet, Royal Air Maroc.
I'm just gonna interrupt here slightly. Just say we have proper podcast royalty here in the chat room at the moment. In the legend that is David Vanderhoff has actually joined us in the live chat room. I know. I'm a little bit excited. It's the legend that is. If he's here for the military section, then on this particular occasion we may not miss Armando not being present, which is great. David, great to see you in our live chat room.
Yeah, hello to you, David.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Carlos, I wonder if you could maybe take the next story for us, because we're having a few technical issues
with our guest.
Our guest at the moment. He's on it, but I don't think it's going to be up and running in time. So perhaps you could take.
So this one is on simpleflying.com's website. Headline: JetBlue steps up to transport medical workers for free. A word we love here. So even though air travel for passenger traffic has been down significantly for airlines around the world, they're still doing their part to support the public during the pandemic. Many airlines are running repatriation flights. Some are flying their aircraft to collect and deliver distant medical supplies. And then there are airlines like JetBlue helping medical professionals to get to places they are needed most for free. So the airline says that it's currently working with a number of community non-profit partners as well as NGOs to help get medical professionals and much needed supplies to places across America. Specifically, the hospitals and organisations they are associated with or directly supporting. And it says here that the airline is accepting requests via a special email address. However, the airline says that the team managing this initiative may take some time to respond due to the volume of requests. The estimated response time to these emails is around 3 days. Last week, fellow US carrier Delta Airlines announced that it would offer free flights for medical volunteers, more specifically to offer round-trip tickets for eligible medical volunteers, which to be issued free of charge heading to 3 states, Georgia, Louisiana, and Michigan. The volunteers will work in coordination with state and local governments deploying to hospitals in areas hardest hit by the virus. Interestingly, the airline is also providing flights to select students who need assistance getting to family and friends or a permanent housing situation within immediacy of the crisis several weeks ago. Many students were forced to vacate their dormitories and or campus housing, and some had very little notice. Those interested and eligible should provide an image of their current unexpired student ID, that's us lot out then, proof of enrolment from an accredited educational institution to the email address provided on this story. So it looks like JetBlue is doing amazing work and going far above and beyond what is required for a relatively small airline, from transporting medical professionals and supplies to helping stranded students. The work of this airline sets a great example for airlines across the world. So I think it's safe to say, though, that there are a lot of airlines in and around the world which are stepping up to the plate.
Yeah, very much so. In fact, actually, while we've been on air here, I noticed that there's been I think it was medical aid flights with Virgin, actually. I got a nice little picture here that's being sort of posted while we've been on air, actually. This is a Boeing 787. As I say, there's some kit there being delivered. I just love how the aviation industry is really sort of romping up against the fight. I just think it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. I'm loving it.
Yeah. What's BA doing, Nev? Anything?
Not a lot at the moment. I'm sure. Sorry, there are probably some cargo flights going on, I would imagine, as well. They are obviously not running anywhere near their full schedule. They stopped their operation out of Gatwick this week. London City Airport's already shut, and as of Sunday night, just coming up, Heathrow will be shutting one of their runways as well.
Wow.
Never hear myself say that, but they're probably going to be down to, I don't know, 250 movements a day, 200, I don't know, compared to normal 1,400. So it's a huge reduction, and it'll give them a chance to do more maintenance and, all that sort of stuff.
It's amazing. It's like we say all the time, don't we, during the week in our private chat groups and stuff. You look at the on the radar, flight radars and stuff during the day, when you're used to seeing flights coming in, thick and fast into Heathrow and Gatwick and Stansted and Luton and all the airports within the UK. And you look during the day now, and it's just, cargo flights, the occasional, repatriation flight and stuff. And it's just amazing. It just baffles the mind to see how air travel has just dropped right off since this pandemic started. Yeah,
I mean, it can't be helped, can it? This is the thing. It's it's I don't know. Let's as I say, let's hope it's not like that for long. But as I say, I'm loving all these sort of feel good stories, if you see what I mean, where the industry that we all love dearly is sort of doing its best to do its bit, and I think that's one of the reasons why we're sort of running these stories this week, is to sort of highlight how everyone is chipping in. I think it's just great.
Yeah, I think for a lot of our listeners who do work for the airlines, who may be furloughed or having a bit of a rough time, that's we're here, and we're all supporting you as we can.
We've got a quiz to look forward to next week.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes, there are many podcasts and stuff to listen to, aviation podcasts, and I think it's for the few people I've spoken to who work within the industry who do listen to podcasts. It does make a hell of a difference for them to have something to listen to.
Oh, I agree. I completely agree. Definitely. Yeah. It's actually while we're talking about this, we were talking about like ghost flights and stuff earlier, weren't we? There's a very interesting video that we found actually, and this is at Stansted Airport, and it's so weird to see so many parked aircraft, isn't it? This is the thing that's mind blowing, isn't it? Where you've got, as I say, anybody who's watching the YouTube version of the show, you'll be able to see these aircraft. So this is drone footage that was taken by, MAG, who are the people who own Stansted Airport.
Drone footage?
I know, at an airport. Who'd have thought that was possible? That goes to show how quiet it is, let's be honest. But, I mean, this is... the reason why I'm showing this really is because this is... I don't think we'll ever see something like this in our lifetime again. Do you know what I mean? To see all of this aircraft, these beautiful beasts on the ground at stands all over the place. It's just brilliant. I just love it.
Also, did you see the car park that's normally absolutely chocker?
Yeah, and nobody in it. Yeah,
just then there was
all round by the tower.
Cars scattered around, weren't there? But that was about it.
I know, it's crazy,
bit
isn't
like
it?
my flight out of T5 at Heathrow to Newcastle the other week, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Gosh.
I know. Although, as I say, I will never get over that. I think the photograph that you shared of me of somebody in his hazmat suit, I mean, that must have made everybody feel so uncomfortable.
It certainly did. Yes, I have to say. And yes, talking to a South African lady on the bus from the remote stand back to terminal, she was visibly very worried about it all as well.
Well, and you can't blame her, really, can you? You really can't blame her. Anyway, Carlos, we've got no Armando this week, have we? So,
no, we haven't. We haven't got any Armando this week, and honestly, he does miss it. He really does miss it when he. I know
he's nearly as sad as you.
The show. Yeah. but we do have some military stories to go through. So I think if everyone's ready, we'll bash them out.
Let's go.
So the first story on the military news segment this week, and it's regarding a film that I personally just cannot wait for this to come out in the cinema if it comes out.
You are
in
so
the
excited, aren't you? Yeah.
Because
no, it'll still come out. It'll definitely come out.
Oh, honestly, I shall break all containment rules just to get to the cinema to watch this.
Right.
So it's going to be Top Gun. But this is on the militarytimes.com. The headline on the story, Tom Cruise asked to pilot a Super Hornet in the Top Gun sequel, and the Navy wasn't having it.
Oh,
so
boring.
This one says here that by all accounts, the upcoming sequel to Top Gun will serve as an unprecedented thrill ride, courtesy of innovative cinematography and acting performed under perhaps the most extreme conditions while pulling G's. If audience anticipation for Top Gun Maverick wasn't already relining following the releasing of the film's trailers, details revealed in an interview from the upcoming May issue of Empire magazine with Tom Cruise and producer Jerry Bruckheimer should certainly do the trick. Director Joseph Kosinski's decision to put IMAX cameras in the cockpit of a Super Hornet showcase CGI-free in-flight sequences featuring actors physically in the aircraft, bolting through frames of stunning terrain at low altitude. Trained pilots, of course, were at the helm off camera. Said to the studio, "You don't know how hard this movie's going to be," Cruise told Empire. "No one's ever done this before. There's never been an aerial sequence shot this way." He says that he didn't know if there will ever be again, to be honest, he says. But before the actors could climb into the cockpit of one of the world's premier fighter aircraft, they had to prepare for the physical stress of what the job would entail. Putting the actors of the original Top Gun in the cockpit of an F-14 didn't work very well, Bruckheimer said. They all threw up.
Oh, dear.
It's hysterical, he said, to see their eyes roll back in their heads. Everything was done on a gimbal. So Cruise, who has piloting experience, can do just about anything in an aeroplane, according to Bruckheimer, designed to boot camp style training regimen to get co-stars like Miles Teller and Glenn Powell ready. When you're pulling heavy G's, it compresses your spine, your skull, and makes some people delirious. Cruise told Empire. Some people can't handle it, so I had to get them up to being able to sustain high Gs because they have to act in the plane. I can't have them being sick all the time.
No, quite.
Cruise requested to pilot an F-18, Empire reported, but the Navy objected, perhaps cognizant that the actor at the controls of a Super Hornet could be very danger zone Kenny Loggins always warned of. The 57-year-old actor pilots both a World War II era P-51 Mustang, an aircraft he personally owns, and a helicopter in the film. Top Gun Maverick, which Cruise characterized as emotional, promises to be one of the more visually immersive cinematastic experiences.
How many beers have you had?
Oh, that's the first one, actually. He says, according to the story, viewers of the film will experience what it's like to be in an F-18 cockpit with those pilots. The film is currently scheduled to hit theatres, and this will be in the US, not the UK, because we always have to wait at least a month after
Not
our
always,
US
not
friends
always.
and family. June the 24th this year.
Right. Okay.
I hate to give you some bad news, Carlos, but it's been delayed till the 23rd of December.
Oh no!
Yeah.
Oh, you've ruined his evening. He's going to be unbearable now. Do you know what you've done there, Matt?
Sorry, it was announced today. It's going back to the 23rd of December.
Oh no! Oh dear.
Right, where's the disconnect button for
No,
Matt?
no! Come on, Come on, hang in there,
I've only
Carlos.
just got back.
Yeah. Hang on, hang in there. Come on, you'll
Anyway.
cope, Carlos. It'll be worth the wait, I'm sure. And who would have thought? I mean, I can't imagine why they don't want him flying their aircraft. I can't imagine why they wouldn't want that.
It's like 2020's been a really Sierra Hotel India Tango year,
Right.
anyway, to begin with.
Right. And this is the
So
finalised. This is the
we've got
finding
to
icing
wait-
on the cake.
We've
for
got
you,
to
so-
wait for James Bond, the release of the new James Bond
Yes,
film.
that's true.
We've
Yes.
now got to wait for Top Gear to be released. I mean, what next? You know?
I mean, you can't blame him for asking to fly it, can you?
Well,
we would
no.
all have asked.
Well, no, quite, absolutely. And in fact, we do have a little bit of a picture here of him flying the Mustang. So hang on, just there we go. Look, there you go. It's all right for some,
That's
isn't it?
his own personal Mustang, isn't it?
Is
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Get him.
He owns that.
Does he? Well, it's not like he's short of a bob or two, let's be honest.
And it appears in the film, I believe.
Oh,
He used his
cool.
own aircraft in the film. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Oh, don't say anything else about the film, because Carlos will go away and cry if we're not
Anyway,
careful.
moving swiftly on.
Yeah.
Next story
Yeah.
is, and no, I'm not even a military buff guy, you know, but I just love the film.
Right.
I think we should definitely have all the podcasts get together for a cinema trip.
Oh, do you know what? Yeah, let's do that. Let's everybody all
damn
go
good
and see it
idea.
in
Last
December.
year.
Yeah, screw it. Hopefully, if we're all allowed out come December, then I think that's a brilliant idea. Let's all pick a cinema that's central to where everyone is, and let's do it. Let's do it. There we are. We'll have a sort of impromptu meetup. We'll go out for a bite to eat first, and then go and watch the film. How does that?
I'm
You've
in.
started something here, Matt. You've
Yeah,
started something
I don't care.
Right.
We all need cheering up. There's no two ways about it. So let's
in.
get stuck in.
I'm in.
Yeah, excellent. Nice one.
So
Nev,
next
you,
one-
you fancy a cinema trip?
Oh,
That'd be nice, wouldn't it? Yes, but a bit of. I would just go for the popcorn and the Diet Coke, frankly.
Well, quite. So there is that. Yes. Anyway.
solid or toffee, Nev?
Toffee, definitely.
Oh, good man.
Oh.
Good man.
Yeah.
That's what I like to hear.
Lovely.
That is what I like to hear.
Come December, we'll all be the size of the houses anyway by the time we get
Just
there. 'cause-
as we've been talking, actually, I've just received a text from Andy, who's Matt's co-host on
Oh,
the
no.
A320.
Oh,
brace yourselves, everyone.
Obviously, I can't quite read what he did say, but
Right.
he did say something along the lines of, "What on earth is Matt doing on the podcast?" Something like that.
Oh dear. Oh, that's a shame. Well, we're delighted. We're delighted that your technology is working well-ish to join us. Bless him. What a charmer he is, isn't he?
Well, they are Apple products. Anyway,
Next
Moving on.
story is on the news.usni.org. I don't know what
rather
that
you than
is.
me.
Yeah, these stories are picked by Armando, so I'd never heard of the website. But anyway, the headline is Navy can't afford to slow pilot training amid said virus pandemic. So stopping the spread of said virus in the Navy requires best practices, but that that aren't always conducive to pilot training. Training the service. This is a really horrible website to
You're
read.
right, man.
Apologies. No, I'm fine. It's the English is frightening. The chief of Naval Air Training is left balancing aviator and training command personnel health with the Navy's ongoing work, reducing a pilot shortage and ensuring the force's long-term readiness needs are met. So CNATRA's leadership is attempting to mitigate risks to pilot health while not risking the effectiveness of aviation training. So this is Lieutenant Michelle Tucker, who's a spokesman for the CNATRA. This is going to be really hard to read, isn't it? Anyway, they told the USNI News in an email this week. So their mission remains critical to the defence of our nation, and as such we will continue operations while mitigating risk in compliance with DoD, Navy and CDC guidance, including carrier qualifications. Detachments, Tucker said, CQ detachments are a critical component of strike and E2C2 aviator production. They prepare student naval aviators to execute fleet missions from and at sea. New aviation students are continuing to enter the training pipeline. Commands are encouraging social distancing practices, including using flexible work schedules and telework options. However, social distancing practices are tough to employ in aircraft cockpits, so equipment is frequently cleaned, Tucker said. Foreign military aviation students enrolled in the training pipeline are continuing to train. All surfaces, including... I'm not going to read that. That's just going to go on and on, isn't it? So the Navy doesn't have much of a margin when it comes to considering delaying aviation training in 2019. The Navy was on track to meet its annual target of producing 1,100 aviators after years of falling short of its goal, according to a 2019 Department of Defense report to Congressional Armed Services Committees about the Pentagon's efforts to mitigate pilot shortages. So the organization's training has the added challenge of navigating the Department of Defense's stop movement orders put in place to slow the spread of said virus. The flying aircraft is an integral part of flight training and is often involving flying from training bases to other locations, including civilian airports. I mean, you get the idea of this. So they've got a real challenge on their hands, haven't they, really, to keep their quotas up, if you like, especially if they want to not miss their target of 1,100 pilots by the end of 2020. So it's challenging times, certainly, for the US Navy by the look of it.
I could almost see Armando, watching this going, oh, Matt.
I know.
Like that.
It's not a great...
You can...
the wording on that story was a bit challenging, it has to be said. It could have done with being a larger... Oh, sorry, right, the sorry, the CNATRA is the Chief of Naval Air Trainers. That's what that acronym stands for. Yeah, right. Okay. Well,
the man who should have read this story is in the chat room.
Oh, is he?
With the surname Vanderhoff.
Oh, very good. Yes, absolutely. He's being very nice. He's being unbelievably nice to me, actually. I don't know why. There we go, look. Yeah. I'm going to put this up on the screen because I may never get another positive compliment ever again. There we are. Matt, you did good. That was a challenge.
So, Nev, the next story is regarding an aircraft. I think we saw this last year.
Well, and do you remember this fine gentleman that...
I do.
You and I spoke to, Carlos. That's Tony De Bruyn and his OV10 Bronco. So quite interesting, I must say. The story that we've got here is on thedrive.com, and it says a quarter of a century after the last OV10 Broncos left US military service, US Air Force Forward Air Controllers, now dubbed Joint Terminal Air Controllers, which is JTACs, may find themselves working with these light attack planes again soon during training programs and exercises. Blue Air Training, a private contractor that has already secured a deal to provide such a service, recently announced that it was in the process of acquiring 7 Broncos. The Las Vegas headquartered contractor first revealed its Bronco plans on March the 27th, 2020. The company, which also operates out of Pensacola, Florida, said that the aircraft will be a mixture of OV-10D pluses and OV-10G variants, but did not say how much of each it was buying. Blue Air Training was one of the 7 different companies to get an indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity contract in October 2019 as part of a massive multi-billion-dollar Air Force effort to acquire contractor-operated aircraft to support both air-to-air and air-to-ground training requirements at bases across the United States. Under its contractor air support mega contract, the Air Force wants companies to fly approximately 10,000 flight hours during the routine JTAC training and exercises in total annually across 9 different US Army bases. It's not clear what portion of this requirement Blue Air training will fulfill and whether its Broncos will be the only planes involved. The company also has a fleet of Cold War era BAC Jet Provis and Strike Master light jets, as well as Romanian made IAR 823 propeller-driven light trainers and A90 Raider light turboprop aircraft. The A90s are modified ex-Finnish Air Force L90 turboprop trainers. According to the folks at Scramble.nl, the company who also recently bought a half a dozen ex-Royal Australian Air Force PC-9 turboprop trainers. All of these aircraft are suitable for training personnel on the ground, such as JTACs, to call in airstrikes and otherwise coordinate with aerial assets. The US State Department's Air Wing acquired some OV-10s and has a different company, Marsh Aviation, put them through upgrades and a modification program to turn it into a herbicide sprayer aircraft to support counter-narcotics operations. Beyond the spray equipment, the most visible change was the addition of 4-blade propellers to the plane's 2 engines. In 2018, the US Air Force made plans to send NASA's 2 OV-10As and its pair of OV-10Gs, G+s, to the Philippines, which is the largest military operator of the type in the world, though it's unclear if the transfer ultimately occurred. NASA has long been the last US government Bronco operator. Its OV-10G+s had notably been part of a US military program led by US Special Operations Command, known as Combat Design 2, that explored light aircraft tactics, techniques and procedures between 2012 and 2015, culminating with an actual combat field test in Iraq. So, good to see that these aircraft are being used again. And we certainly enjoyed talking to Tony and seeing him fly his OV-10 around Biggin Hill, didn't we? That was great.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Just for, if anyone's interested, by the way, the Broncos demo team interview went out on the New Year episode in 2020, and also on episode 284. So if you'd like to catch the interview that Nev was talking about earlier, they're on the New Year episode and episode 284.
Biggin Hill, that was good.
Biggin Hill,
good weekend. Yeah, that was a good weekend. It's a shame that they're not. Obviously, well, the current climate, but they're not running a Biggin Hill air show this year, are they, Nev?
No, and we're going to have to be quite creative this year with our content, that's for sure. Because we won't be doing any live air shows, but we'll certainly be doing interviews with people involved as well.
Agreed.
So,
yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Excellent. So the next story in the military segment, then, the last one, is for our guests to read. And this is all about power drills. F-35 drills.
It is, yeah. This one's from the Jerusalem Post. And it says that the Israeli Air Force and the US Air Force hold joint F-35 drill in southern Israel. It says that the drill was given special permission to take place despite continued spread of coronavirus. Thought we were going to do a whole section without that word being mentioned.
No.
Drink.
No, I daren't drink anymore. I can barely talk as it is.
Despite the coronavirus, the Israeli Air Force F-35s trained alongside the American F-35s on Sunday in the Enduring Lightning training exercise. The drill had pilots do a drill on a wide variety of operational theatres while strengthening the cooperation between the forces. As well as facing various aerial and ground threats, the IAF said in a statement that the drill saw Israeli F-35s aircraft from the 140 Golden Eagle Squadron train alongside the F-35s from the US Air Force 34th Fighter Squadron, as well as the 122 Squadron from the Israeli Air Force, which operates the Gulfstream G500 aircraft. Major M, leader of the exercise on behalf of the 140 Squadron, was quoted by the Israeli Air Force's website as saying that this will be the second time we'll fly alongside an American F-35. We aspire to stay as connected as possible to countries involved in its development projects, and training with the Americans presents an excellent opportunity to do so, since they have a lot of knowledge and expertise on the matter. The exercise we conducted was intimate. The forces flew in 2 formations of 4 and communicated directly as opposed to through an indirect channel. Despite the cancellation of all international joint exercises because of the continued spread of the deadly coronavirus across the globe, the drill had received special permission as it was due to take part in the air with no person-to-person contact. There you go.
Like I said to you earlier, there's been a lot more military activity over the country this week because of what's going on.
Well, and of course, it's unusual to see so much data being shared with everyone as well. That's the thing that's most surprising.
Lots of mention in that story about drills as well, wasn't there?
There was. Oh, quite. How long have you been hanging on to that for, Nev?
Hour and a half.
Right, good, lovely. Winning.
That's why Nev's had the plumber in all day. Various holes in the
oh dear.
walls.
Well, yes, quite. Well, he's not allowed at the moment because obviously he's
social distancing.
No, social distancing. Yes.
Absolutely.
He must have a very long drill bit.
Lovely.
Yeah.
We'll leave that in the corner there,
Anyway.
shall we? And move on. Yes, absolutely.
Anyway, that is where we bring the military segment to a close. But to give us all a chance to go and refill, especially mine, empty, which you can't see because I've got the green screeny thing on, empty beer glasses, we're going to play out something we haven't played out for a while on the show. So over to you, Matt.
We'll be back right after these very short messages.
Find this and other great shows at the Aviation Media Network.
thevoicesinyourhead.com. The Plain Talking UK podcast is a voluntary project that aims to keep you informed with the latest aviation-related stories from newswires across the globe.
Producing our content does cost money though. If you enjoy our show, why not help us keep on the air by making a donation towards the server and website hosting fees through PayPal. Any contributions would be greatly appreciated.
Are you an Amazon user? If so, why not do your shopping through the link on our website? There's no cost to yourself and Amazon pay us a small referral fee on qualifying purchases.
To find out more about the show and to meet the team, take yourself to our website www.plaintalkinguk.com
or find us on Facebook at facebook.com/plaintalkinguk, on Twitter via @plaintalkinguk, or get in touch via email on podcast@plaintalkinguk.com. Thanks for listening.
Flybe 5823 Trent Dane for 23-hour Manchester, Wizz Air 6X, climb flight level 210, direct to Bretlands Park. United 123, maintain 280 knots. London 2TME, turn right onto Bravo, link, 21 join Alpha, hold at Mora, Speedbird 472, LOC/DME, approach runway 27 left, follow the green stand 544.
That's enough air traffic control for today, Nat. Bedtime.
So we came up with the idea of having a video course.
Obviously ours are better because we've got the experience on the aircraft and we know what we need to be looking at.
Something that myself and Andy started initially really to improve our own technical knowledge and put something out there. We saw that there was a gap and this wasn't a media that was being used for this purpose, and our hunch was right because there's obviously a market for it.
Have you ever wondered what it would be like to fly a commercial passenger jet? Looked up at the sky and thought, I wish that was me? Well, now anyone has the chance to have a go at flying in a real aircraft simulator. NP Simulations and Flight Experience London, the only official Boeing licensed product of its kind in the UK, offer you the chance to fly anywhere in the world in their fixed-base Boeing 737-800 flight simulator. And that's not all. Ground School London offers many different courses for the up-and-coming pilot looking for a start in aviation. With prices starting at just £109, the sky's the limit. So for the ultimate flight simulator experience, or engaging preparatory courses, including those for schools and colleges, check out the websites at www.london.flightexperience.co.uk and www.groundsschoollondon.com, or call on 020 300 40 616. NP Simulations. Fly your dreams.
Oh, that was nice to have those back again.
Oh, every time we do play that, which I know is very, very rare these days, but I listened to that last advert and I still think, Nev, how on earth did you essentially manage to get the voice of the balls, the legend that is Sir Alan of Dedicote, to do our advert? Seriously.
Well, it's not what you know, it's who you know. It's the same way that, I interviewed Mel C that time.
Good point, yes, absolutely.
Good point, yeah.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Blimey.
Mel C's aside, we have obviously got a famous guest with us on the show this evening.
And the main reason for running that advert, believe it or not, is because a certain A320 Lounge product was mentioned.
So, Matt, welcome onto the show. As we said, thanks for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
And Matt, so obviously things are slightly quieter for you now, but before all this started, obviously you were in the full flow of flying and stuff. On the situations like this where you are kind of grounded as such, do you still have to go back and do recurrent training or any sim work? Or
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't, from a legal perspective, that hasn't been quite sorted out yet. They're talking about making extensions because, of course, some people may be due their 6-monthly simulators now or between now and June. So they are offering extensions from that. So we're not sure exactly from a legal standpoint. There may be some extra training required. We'll have to see. I mean, I'm quite well positioned to give you the experience of this because some of you know, before this, I actually had a year off because I had a hip replacement. So I actually know what it's like to be on the ground for an extended period of time. And I got my medical back in September and I did some training. And to be honest, most of it was psychological. You're sort of worried about the fact that you've not flown for so long. But I'd say within 15 minutes of being in the simulator, it all just came straight back. So it's like riding the proverbial bike, I suppose, that it sort of all slots back. It helps with the podcast because obviously myself and Andy are always in the books anyway where we're writing podcasts and we get a lot of questions emailed in that people aren't sure about, so that's always sort of forcing us to go back into the books because we never like to give someone an answer just off the top of our head. We always double check our answer because obviously we don't want someone to go away with the incorrect information.
Well, of course, and I mean, you obviously the podcast that you do, which is the A320 podcast, it's a320podcast.com if anybody is under a stone and not seen it. And I mean, I love it because, I mean, I'm the first to admit I know nothing about aviation, but listening
really?
to, yeah, absolutely, I know, it's a shock to everyone, I know. But learning, listening to your podcast and stuff, it's a really, I mean, it's very technical. I mean, for somebody like me who doesn't know a great deal about the aircraft, and I mean, you say the word toga and it just goes woof, straight over the top of my head, but it's a fascinating thing, and I mean I've said on podcasts before, it is very much what I like to refer to as the Haynes manual of the aviation world, for the A320 podcast. I think
actually, Matt, can we just say on that note about the podcast?
Yeah.
Big round of applause to
yes.
Matt and Andy for
Their
100 shows.
Oh,
yeah.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely, yeah. You had a couple of special guests on that, if I recall.
We did. You were very familiar with those. We had Captain Nick and we had Captain Owl both on. So it was really good, actually. We enjoyed it. Captain Nick did an excellent plane tales. He hadn't done one on the A320.
Oh, that's handy.
Yeah, we asked him very nicely if he'd do one for us, and he was more than happy to do so. It was a really, really good plane tales, which we thoroughly enjoyed, and we had a lot of good feedback from that. And as you can imagine, anything involving Captain Owl is always
windy, yes.
So, yeah, it was excellent.
Yeah.
And very well received all round. So, yeah, we can't believe that we've got to that milestone, to be honest. When we first started out, we thought, maybe a few of our friends and colleagues might listen. We hoped to have, if we got 100 downloads in a month, we thought we'd have done well. And we're getting about 20,000 a month now.
That's crazy.
Actually, on the note of the podcast, Matt, we've got a question from the chat room from our main man, Micah, just asking, can you tell us a bit about the origin of the A320 podcast? How did it come about, and what are the topics that you cover?
Well, basically, it started, I've always been a fan of podcasts, and there was a time when my simulator was coming up and I was doing some study for it, so I'd be at home with the family, and certainly, especially when my kids were much younger, as soon as you get some paper out and try and do any sort of studying, they'd come running over, oh, can we do some drawing too? So it's always very hard to be studying at home, and I'm sure lots of other people will understand that. And then you'd spend time away from your family studying, get in the car, and then I'd sit and listen to a podcast learning about something else all the way into, and most people, you know, my commute's about 40 minutes into work. And I thought to myself, I wish that someone was talking to me about the A320 instead of, you know, what other things I was learning about. So I had a look to see if I could find anything, and I couldn't. And at the time, Andy was a first officer, and I'd flown with him a few times, and I knew that he had an engineering background, and we both enjoyed the tech side. So we went for a coffee, and I sort of pitched the idea to him, and he thought it sounded great. And that's where it kicked off, really. And we did a lot of research and found out what the different things are you need to get a podcast going, set everything up, and just recorded our first episode.
So that's
gone from strength to strength, really.
That's the podcast element. Obviously, was sort of your love of the A320 and looking essentially for audio technical manuals, almost, isn't it, about procedures and things to do with the A320. So how did the new product, which is the A320 Lounge, now these are teaching resources essentially, aren't they? How did that all come about?
There's a natural progression, really, from what we had on the podcast. There's only so much you can do through audio. You know, when you're trying to explain certainly something quite technical, there's only so much you can do just by using your voice. So there are certain times we need to demonstrate something or show something more clearly. So the natural progression was to video. And we just thought what we could do is include this to have a complete online training packages. So we rented a simulator. We've got an extremely good production sound and video man, which is sitting with us right now, Mr. Nev, who does all our film. And yes, we went and hired a simulator and shot the failures and edit those up. And yeah, that's gone from strength to strength as well. So there are videos out there. We have competitors that do a similar thing, but generally they just do full run-throughs. So there'd be a certain failure, and then you would just see that play out, which we also have. But on top of that, we then have the equivalent of a whiteboard presentation. We have PowerPoint presentations, graphics you can download. And so we have a whole package. And basically, me and Andy sat down and thought, what would we most like out of an online training package? And that's where it's got to where it is, really.
Well, and it's looking at that whole, as you say, it's looking at essentially what the other people aren't doing, isn't it? And that's the key to developing a successful product, isn't it? You're looking for like a gap in the market. Although there, as you say, there are people who are doing said product. You know, perhaps they're not quite applying, your experience, if you like, to that model. Actually, there's a funny little message that's come in on the chat room here. This is from Underwater Richard, and he says, "I'm currently studying my Part 66 AML whilst working full time, and my 2-year-old often appears to ask Daddy colouring, and my highlighter gets stolen. I suspect this is something that happens for quite a lot. Anybody who's got families."
Yep, that's exactly what I was referring to.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a common problem, I suspect.
Yeah, and that was the aim, really, was to make the most of your commute time so that you can spend more time with your family or whatever you're doing. It just seems like a waste of time in the car, especially as most crew tend to commute. Everyone we speak to is minimum of a 20-minute drive, which is why we then set the podcast up to be about 20 minutes long. We try and keep them to a maximum of 20 minutes. So that they're small bite-sized episodes, and also they cover most people's commutes. You can listen to an episode on your way to or from work.
Unlike what we do, where it goes on for like 2 hours. You have to...
Yeah, it takes me about 3 or 4 days to listen to one of your podcasts.
Well, you've got competition there with APG. Obviously, they specialise.
That's a whole block. I was a whole block of flying to listen to an APG. Yeah.
So Matt, you fly the 320 for the airline that you fly for. with the Neo that you obviously fly as well, and the original, the original A320. Is there a preference between the two of them? Because a lot of people, you sort of hear people say that they prefer the old school to the new school. I mean, is the Neo that much better than the original 320?
I'd say, well, from a pilot's point of view, it doesn't actually make that much difference, other than the fact that it's got more power. The flight deck is almost identical inside. In fact, it is identical from the Neo to the CEO, as we call it, which is the current engine option. I don't know when they're going to change the name of that, because it isn't the current engine option if you then have the new engine option. I don't know. When does it not become new anymore? But if you listen to our 100th episode, we had quite a long chat with Al actually about that, because, me and Andy are quite fortunate. The airline we fly for has very new aeroplanes, and generally ours are about 5 years old, whereas Al has been flying much longer than us, so he's much more experienced. And we were chatting to him about the aircraft that he's flown, the 320 aircraft, and he's flown some very early ones. And he was saying that you could jump from one of those into a Neo and you'd have no issues at all. So Airbus have done a fantastic job of that, keeping that continuity through. They've had tweaks and new technology added, but they've maintained that user interface throughout, which I think is a huge testament to the original design and concept. Because there's no way another for example, the 737-200, there's no way if you'd only flown that, you could go and get in a brand new MAX or, 800 or something, because for a start, the 200 didn't even have any screens. So everything was completely different.
Nev, you've got some questions for Matt.
Yes, we have. Let's have a look in the chat room. My chat room's just frozen. That's not very helpful, is it?
Oh.
Can anybody else read from the chat room? Because I can't at the moment.
Okay, yeah, just bear with. There is, so it's frozen here as well. We've obviously got a bit of an issue occurring here.
All right, then I've got one for you, Matt.
Oh, good, yes.
Here we go.
Right,
brace yourselves.
If the airline that you currently fly for were to purchase, let's say, for instance, I don't know, a Boeing product.
Oh.
Would you like to get type rated and ticked off on the box for a 73?
I'd say no, only because I'm lazy and I couldn't be bothered to do another type rating. I couldn't be bothered. But obviously, if it was forced on me, then I would happily do it. But it's only through laziness. And it would be really hard to do the A320 podcast, not flying it anymore.
Well, there is that, yeah.
that would be a whole new podcast for you guys.
Yeah,
to do.
I mean, the 737 podcast, it's a good idea.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's definitely an option. Oh, there we go. Look, there's...
look. Oh, yeah.
There you are.
Just before they went on the flight, there we go.
Yeah, it's pleased to see there's a bit of beer in front of them. That's the thing.
In fact, that was before our last filming session. You can see Andy brought along some little goodies there. I'm not talking about the crisps. He's got some Airbus goodies that he managed to snaffle away. So, yeah.
So, Nev, there's a question from Micah I've just noticed appeared in the chat room.
Yes, there is. And Mike says, have you flown the A318 or A319, and are there any major differences there?
I've flown the 319, so I've only flown the 319, 320, and the 320 Neo. Differences, I'd say it's hard to explain really to someone that hasn't flown, but the 319 just feels more in tune with what you're doing. You feel like you're more in tune with the aircraft. Certainly if it's windy, it just seems to be a bit more nimble and a bit more stable. Everyone always jokes that flying the 319 is like wearing a backpack. It's like part of you. So, especially when it's windy, everyone likes to fly the 319. 320 with the wingtip fences, which are like the diamond-shaped bits you get on the wingtips, they're okay. The sharklets, which you've seen where they scoop up, they can be quite challenging in a crosswind. So that's mainly the differences between the different ones. Yeah. We also discussed on the 100th episode as well.
Are there any particular airports in Europe, Matt, that you really love flying into? You know, where the approaches are, you know, you could fly with your eyes closed.
Well, anywhere than ILS, I could fly in with my eyes closed.
Maybe you shouldn't do that.
So, it's not necessarily the ones. I suppose for us, it's down to the view, I guess, which ones have the nicest view. It's always nice to go into Nice because that's always a nice view. And unless it's got a low cloud base, we have to do a visual manoeuvre. So we have to take the autopilot out and everything. We just fly manually around the peninsula and come into land. So that's quite nice.
And obviously the approach into Lucca, I suppose, is probably one of the best ones as well.
Don't do that. Sorry.
Damn.
So we'll take the next question from the chat room. So this one is from Tony S. He says, question for Matt. Does your airline's procedures differ massively from those set out by Airbus?
Oh, good question. Very good question. That is one of the most difficult parts of doing the podcast, actually, is that there is no such thing as a generic A320 because everyone has their aircraft slightly differently. The airline I fly for is pretty much Airbus's SOPs. And I'd say most airlines are around 90% of Airbus's SOPs, and then you have the odd airline that is completely different. I won't mention any names, Nev. But, but yeah, there's the airline I fly for is pretty much as Airbus says. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nev, Dr. Steph Nev has got a question for Matt in the chat room.
Yes, she has, and she was. My chat room is frozen again. That's very odd. But, she says, "Why is the cabin so noisy on the takeoff roll?" Depends on where
on
you're
a 320.
So yeah.
Specifically on a 320?
Yes.
Interesting, because I would have thought it was quieter. I don't know that answer, because I always thought they were quieter, to be honest.
And
actually, Steph's also asking, Matt, as well, what's your favourite feature of the A320, or least favourite feature of the A320?
Oh, interesting.
It's a two-part question. Yeah.
These are good questions.
We have good listeners, that's why.
Yeah. Favourite part? I don't know, I quite like having a side stick as opposed to a big yoke. I think it's more natural to fly like that. When I first trained and when I was an instructor, I instructed on a Grob 109, which is a stick aeroplane, and it's the same principle. So I quite like having the side stick. Worst feature? Probably in a strong crosswind, it's probably nicer to be in something like a 737 where you've got cables attached, sometimes with fly-by-wire, because although it's the same principle as a fighter jet, it's nowhere near as responsive. So sometimes your crosswinds can be a bit more challenging. That's the only thing, really. I don't know, I like most stuff about it, really. It's a good question. If I think of anything, I'll come back to you.
Yeah, I must say the first time I flew the A320 Sim when we were flying, when we were filming rather, the other month, I was surprised, how I think easy would be the wrong expression, because it's not easy at all, but it wasn't as difficult as I thought it was going to be. But there was no, crosswind or any weather going on.
So I mean, as a novice, Nev, obviously, I mean, how did it feel for you, the differences between, like, because obviously the 737-800 and the A320, I suppose, as far as products are concerned, it's the nearest you're going to get to a like comparison between Airbus and Boeing. I mean, having flown both simulators, how did it feel different?
Yeah, it is different. There's no question about it. But I think I enjoyed the 320 because it was it's a very sort of benign feeling aircraft actually as well. But when you get below sort of 1,000 feet, then you've really got to be on the money when it comes to accuracy and tracking the ILS, because I could see why it would be easy to over control it as well.
Yeah, it's very easy to over control the 320. I've thought of something I don't like about it.
Oh, okay, good, yes.
But it's a mixed one really, because I don't like the manuals. So the way it's written, it was written by French engineers, so it wasn't written by pilots. So it's in engineer language, and then it was translated from French into English by Germans. So it's really, really complicated. But on the flip side, people wouldn't need the podcast if it was well written. So we do quite well of it being badly written.
Well, there is that. Oh, well, listen.
But Nev was saying about the it being easy to fly is, in a way, he's correct, because, I mean, this is simplifying it massively, but essentially the Airbus will maintain whichever trajectory you put it in, roughly. So with a Boeing or any other aircraft, you have to trim it. So if you pull back a little bit, you're doing a trim to hold it there. If you didn't have it trimmed and you let go of the yoke, the nose would drop back down again if you'd pulled up. Whereas the Airbus, if you bring the nose up a bit and let go, it will just stay there. So it's an added thing you don't have to worry about, which is trimming. So to a novice who isn't used to trimming, it makes it much easier because it's something you don't have to even think about.
Interesting. Next question, probably the last question, unfortunately, because we need to sort of start wrapping up. So Richard Adams is saying, have you ever had the chance, even if just in the sim, of flying without or with very limited protections as per Farnborough, for example, i.e. with the laws disabled?
Oh, yeah. So we have to do that almost every 6 months in the simulator.
Right. That's standard procedures, is it, for sort of practicing?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's not guaranteed every time, but they normally give us some sort of failure that means that we'll land without protections. And also on the side, I'm an instructor as well. So on the A320, so I'm often having to demonstrate the aircraft with all the protections turned off.
So, I mean, obviously it's a very different experience, I guess. But I mean, how does it feel? Is it very different? Sort of, does it handle differently, or? Yeah. How technical do you want me to get? Fairly technical. Go on.
So we have. So when we roll, for example, that is given a set rate. So if we put on a certain amount of roll, it doesn't just move the ailerons a certain amount to roll us. It gives us a roll rate. Whereas when you lose your protections, then it becomes an aileron deflection rather than a roll rate.
Okay.
So example like that. So it's much more responsive in effect because it's not protecting you.
Right.
But
okay.
other than that, the protections, you shouldn't ever even know you've got protections because they're there to stop you doing something that will break the aeroplane.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I understood absolutely nothing of that, but thank you.
There you go.
It is unfortunately time to start wrapping up. Matt, thank you so very much for joining us this week.
No, thanks for having us.
It's been a lot of fun, and well done for sticking with the technology and getting things.
Oh man! The problem is living in a village. Like, I mean, we're still celebrating coming off dial-up, so so trying to do this is a nightmare. I'm streaming using my phone as the hotspot.
It's been absolutely fine ever since. Maybe that's the future.
I mean, the whole of the world's coming to an end, but at least we have got Nev Tech 24-hour. Tech support.
We have got tech support, yes, absolutely. We should all consider ourselves very lucky.
Yeah.
I've got no data left on my phone, but hey.
That's all right, but you're going to be at home. You don't need it. It's fine.
Exactly.
And don't forget, for all your Mac queries, just contact Nev at planetalkinguk.com.
Yes, indeed. Nev
But obviously, there's hardly any because they just work normally. So.
Well, this is true. Yes, absolutely. There is that. Anyway, before we end up down another rabbit hole where we start talking about Android devices and all that kind of thing, to get in touch with the show, search for us on social media by looking for Plane Talking UK. Our WhatsApp number, where it basically means you can bombard Carlos with messages. It is +44 757 22 49166. That's +44 757 22 49166. To email the show, podcast at planetalkinguk.com. If you would prefer to use an online form, if you take yourself to our website, www.planetalkinguk.com, you'll find find a contact us page. You can fill in the form, and that will also come to us here in the studio. Or why not subscribe to our YouTube channel? You'll get notifications when we go live, and you can help shape the conversation of the show by joining us in the chat room. Go to go to youtube.com and search for Plane Talking UK. On our website also is the Amazon link. If you click on that and then do your usual Amazon shopping, Amazon very kindly pay us an advertising referral fee, which we can put towards buying equipment here in the studio. And if you do have, in this sort of current climate, we completely understand, but also we are on Patreon. It's patreon.com/Plane Talking UK if you would like to become a Patreon.
And if anyone's got any Bushmills Irish whiskey,
yes, please.
Matt's run out.
Yeah, no, I have. Look, we have a bit of a disaster here. Look, the studio bottle is empty. We need another one. It's a bit of a disaster.
At the beginning of the show.
Yeah, it was half full when we started the show, but it's been a rough show. I'm not going to lie. There we go.
So that is unfortunately where we're going to bring the show to a close. Thanks to everyone who has joined us in the live YouTube chat room this evening. All the family members in there. Great to see everyone. And I hope, on behalf of everyone here at the show, I hope everyone has a incredibly safe and healthy
Stay well, everyone.
time.
Stay well.
Stay well, everyone. So from me, Carlos, here in my home studio, from Nev in the Nev Tech studios, from Matt in the PTUK studios, and from Matt in the A320 studios. Have a great weekend, everyone. Take care.
See you all soon. Bye-bye.